All right.
You're not getting any feedback from the fan behind me, right?
Nah, no, I'm not hearing anything. I got
Sorry.
that though.
Yeah.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and as always, I am joined by Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair, my friends, my co-hosts, and we made it to the finish line. Worlds is done, and oh my gosh, what a Worlds it was. I mean, we'll get into it, but I think we can all collectively say that that was one for the books. It was so amazing. I got to get your overall initial reactions, just how you felt during that and after it, after all was said and done. Kevin, I got to start with you, obviously, but you were there, so I have to know how that experience was for you, man.
I mean, it was insane. I've been to 2 LCS finals, and this one was like the highest energy I've ever been in. I couldn't hear the casters most of the time, so I actually want to watch the series back and actually hear what they were saying. Maybe they were just yelling too, but every time something happened, the crowd would just like the arena would shake. So honestly, it was excellent. It was probably one of the best series, and then probably the best or second best finals, depending on who you ask. So I don't know. I thought it was a historic series. I'm really glad I was there for it. My voice is still recovering, so
I could tell.
I was screaming for like 6 hours straight. It was crazy.
That's awesome, man.
All right. Well, game one, not really, and then the last 4 games for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was the outcome everybody wanted, but most people didn't think would happen.
Yeah.
Most people, yes.
Mitchell, you didn't think it was gonna happen either. You're just voting with your heart, bro. Let's be honest
No,
here.
I thought it was gonna happen. I predicted them all the way. I get the credit. I'm taking it all the way. It was pretty crazy. I watched it with a bunch of friends, and none of them really knew or watched League. They just knew I was into it, and we went to this watch party, and pretty much they didn't know at all. They would just look to me like, "Is that good or bad?" And I'm like, "That's bad." "Oh, that's good." And then all they cared about was DRX winning because they saw the preview, uh, like kind of showing the history behind Deft and Faker and stuff. I told them that Deft and basically all of DRX are just massive underdogs, all being like left behind. Told them how like a lot of members of DRX from a previous year left to go to Gen G and to T1, and then DRX actually gets to beat them. Beryl gets left behind by his own team, Dan won, and he gets to beat them. He gets to go farther than them, and so it's just you just tell people it's an underdog story. You kind of break it down, and they just rally behind, and you really feel like that's exactly what happens, right? The entire stage and stadium, it's like I could tell everybody was just on their side. Even if you're a Faker fan, if you're a T1 fan, even if you didn't care, you just were on the side of DRX. So it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, gotta be the greatest underdog story in League, at least. I mean, I feel like every sport has that one year, that one time when that team that nobody ever expected to do it goes all the way against all odds. And I'm one of those people for DRX this year. I mean, every time, every level that we've reached, they surpass my expectations, and I just can't believe it. I really, really did not think, even though I was going for T1, but as objective as possible, I really did not think they had the tools to be able to do it. And after game one, I honestly was like, yeah, I think I'm right. Like, I think T1's got this. It's pretty, it's all right. And then when I see game two and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This isn't really going to happen, right? And honestly, that's what made the series so good, right? Is that it was back and forth. It wasn't, reverse sweeps are great, but to have it go one game and then one game the other way and then another game back over, it was really keeping everything on a nice edge. And so that's what I loved about the series. I mean, honestly, you'll have to remind me if there are any others, but this to me was the best. Even though the team that I was rooting for, even though they did not win in T1, I was a little sad for Faker, but man, I am really sad for Keria. Like, that guy, he's so young, but if you remember the shot of him just crying and shaking, like seeing all those emotions poured out, I mean, that's gotta be, heartbreaking. He is young, so he has a lot of time, so that there is that, but that was just, man, that was a tough one to watch. And, there was a little debate on, like, people are like, should they have kept the cameras on him or whatever?
Yeah.
And, I mean, what do you think about that? I don't know. What do you think?
I think in sports, like, it makes sense to like show, both sides. Like show some emotion, like from the losing side, show this excitement of the winning side. That just like humanizes them, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys saw on broadcast, but in the arena, like they like showed a lot of shots of Keria for I felt like what felt like an uncomfortably long time.
Mm.
But again, I could just be because I was in the moment because I felt like I was like, why are we still looking at him like
Yeah.
collapsing over here?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, as bad as I feel for Keria, I would have felt a lot worse if we were looking at Deft instead. I mean, that potentially could have been Deft's last year. Probably not. I don't know how the Korean military service works, but Keria has a lot more time. He is easily top 3 supports in the world right now. It sucks for him, but he'll be back. Deft might not get another chance.
Yeah. I think Tyler One had a clip that got pretty passed around, was pretty popular, saying like keep it on him for a bit, but maybe they stayed for a solid 5 to 6 seconds too long. And
Mhm.
I kind of saw some comments also bring up that like the cameras were literally like walking up to him and zooming up to him like in his
Ugh,
face.
yeah.
And owner was like kind of blocking the cameras to try to like protect
Oh
him.
man.
And I do think after a certain extent, right? Yeah, you need to capture the emotion. And we did need to see Keria lose because that is the sport. But yeah, let's just not just sit there for a solid like
Right.
8 to 10 second span. I do
Right.
think that was a bit excessive. I did feel bad for him. He also had a post game interview, right? The entire team did, where he was basically questioning his entire life and all of his decisions. He was like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I gave everything. I played as best as I could, and it wasn't enough. And he's 19. He's young. That's really hard. It's like none of us can really relate. None of us know what he's going through. All we can say is, "Damn, that's hard. That's rough, buddy."
Yeah.
So, um, I do think that I agree with the take that they stayed on him too long, and it's just there's losers and winners, man. He played his heart out. He played so damn good. He's
Yeah,
gonna
he did.
be kicking himself for walking into that Caitlyn trap and Dragon
Yeah.
in Game 5. Oh my God, they might even be kicking themselves for just first picking Karma in that game too. Like
Yeah.
it is just such a rough, like just series of like just inches where it's like these little tiny things that you're just not sure about. So,
Yeah.
um, Kerry is amazing though, and he actually played so well in that series, even though he lost.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll definitely take a deeper dive into the games because we should look at that. But just a couple more like overall like sentiments and reactions is one, I will say that if he's gonna lose and bounce back, there's no one better to do it with than Faker, right? Because Faker is, I mean, when they were already asking him like what he thought of his play and all that stuff, he said he's already thinking about what he could have done better. He's already analyzing his play. Like the guy is literally like already thinking about how he can win again. Like that is
I'm-
just
Did you see the post on Reddit saying he has the record for most international titles won
Yeah.
and most international titles lost?
well, I
Yeah,
mean,
finals
This
this
isn't
lost.
new to him.
yeah, this isn't new to him. And honestly, this is like the heart of a champion. Like this is what you have to do, and this is the mentality you have to be as great as he is. Because honestly, I told you guys before, after he won his third one, I never thought he'd make it to this level again and get this close to winning. And even after he lost, I was like, man, is that it? Am I ever going to see him, make it this close again or even win again? And honestly, I know I asked that before, whether you think he would retire or not, but I think if anyone could do it, it's him. And so all of that to say is that this young squad, they have a great mentor in Faker, being like not just the unkillable demon, but the untiltable demon. This guy is already thinking about how we can play better, what he could have
Was
done.
he untiltable though? I gotta say there was a
Yeah,
clip of him going around. He got
Okay.
1v1 by the blue buff in NA solo queue right leading up to the finals.
Okay.
And I was just saying, NA solo queue might have ruined Faker a little bit for the
Hey,
finals.
who
'cause
knows, man? NA solo queue is unpredictable, and so they could do it.
He had a quote himself saying NA solo queue is harder than winning worlds. And yeah, I mean
That's
that's
crazy.
some props to us. But yeah, to
I
talk
mean-
about his play a little bit, I do think he kind of let his team down actually in certain
Mm.
points. He did not play great in the final series.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think his mindset was good. After the fact, he knows what
Yeah.
to do. He like knows how to take it on the chin. But like to be real, he was playing way below par. He played
Yeah.
so much better against JDG, and that's just like objectively observable. And I think there were a lot of times where mechanical plays, he's actually on point. That's the part where I'm like, oh, he made like small side steps to dodge every Bardol. He was like doing all that right. But why was he in these positions? There were so many times where he was just walking too far up. There were a few games where I'm like, why is he building crown? But then like into this team, stuff like that is whatever. It's not tilt. But I felt like Zeka's influence, although this wasn't the hyper carry game we saw against Gen G, he was still playing way better on average. And
Absolutely.
that's like, I think Faker has the hands weirdly enough, but like some of the stuff, like I think he was a little tilted, and that's something I made a joke with my friends. Was like, dude, NA solo queue, 1 month of NA solo queue can do this to a guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really could just like mess with your brain. I'm serious. Like,
Yeah.
you saw how the best teams in the world just look so much worse after like the longer.
Oh my
And then like
gosh.
DRX was like, yeah, I mean, we're leveling up. We had like this bar, and like, you know, we didn't get worse. So
Yeah. Did you guys see there was a Twitter post that Dokla posted where DRX actually was scrimming this team of amalgam of like just a bunch of NA players. It was like Dokla, it was like Tomio, it was like some other guys. I can't remember all the details, but pretty much DRX was just scrimming North American players, like a random Pobelter, I think there was in it too. Yeah, some of those guys. So we don't actually know who T1 was scrimmed, right? But if T1's playing solo queue and like DRX is just not playing solo queue and just scrimming, like that might actually been the difference, right? Because Beryl straight up doesn't play solo queue. Beryl's a straight up Genshin Impact player, right?
Yeah.
He plays Genshin Impact, and he plays scrims. Like literally right after the finals, Beryl actually travels back to Korea because he's got to go talk to his waifus on Genshin Impact. So like I NA solo queue, man. Took down Faker.
That's actually a good point that you mentioned just with Beryl. Like almost like you don't want to play somewhere where it's going to give you bad habits or bad mental, right? And NA solo queue has been known to be that bad environment, and smart on DRX if that's what they did, if they just kind of avoided that and maybe they saw what was happening and was like, you know what, we're just going to stay in a controlled environment because we don't want to pick up any bad habits. We don't want to pick up any last minute mental booms. And, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe T1 or specifically Faker picked up something that, you know, lingered in that final series. And that was not the greatest performance from him. But you mentioned Beryl, like, talk about how good this guy is. 3 finals in a row, winning 2 of them. And you're right, he's a Genshin Impact main. And that's crazy. It reminds me a little bit of X-Smithy, but on like an international level. This dude's just like, yeah, I don't solo queue. I'm just going to play Genshin Impact, scrim, and win.
I mean, the long and short of it is, I think his strength comes from his adaptability. I think his actual hands and position, everything are like sometimes kind of sus. He could die like semis. He died 5 times on Heimer support. They won, but I'm like, some of those deaths were very unnecessary. And he like even baited Zeus, I think unintentionally, on that Aatrox game with his Heimer.
Game 2? Yeah,
game 2.
Yeah, I remember.
I think Beryl's strength is just his pick pool. Like he literally, when you're like, Bard would be a good angle here, but no pro player picks Bard here. He didn't even play Bard perfectly, to be honest, but it was still so strong. Like it was forcing people to come forward whenever they would ult. It was like giving, they made a really good rotation to top side to gank Zeus once. And a lot of people around me were like, why was T1 not there? I'm like, they probably just magical journey. There was no way to rotate that fast, right? So I think he's really adaptable and he's really strong in terms of like what he offers to a team. But is he like a superstar GOAT support? It depends on what you quantify, right? I find it hard to believe or to name someone the GOAT support until they like, if they don't have the hands for it, I guess. But that's because I value that. I think he offers so much to a team that it's just not a, you really can't say anything against it, right? All the other teams that have multiple wins are part of SKT in some way or another. Also,
I mean, I would disagree with the
crap on paper.
I would disagree with the Beryl hands part, just because I mean he's playing champions that actually do have mechanics. You can't say that for most support champs. I think like that alone, like even if he's not playing Heimerdinger perfectly, let's be honest, what support player is going to play Heimerdinger perfectly? Unless they used to be a Heimerdinger player.
That's true. Hjarnan would, but he's not a support.
And still, I'm pretty sure Beryl's Heimerdinger would be a lot better than Hjarnan's. Like I can agree that like yeah, he definitely does die a lot, but it's one of those ones where it's like sure he's dying a lot, but something often happens because of it that is positive. So I think it's a bit early to say he's the like best support of all time, but he's like certainly making a conversation about it.
Yeah, he's like close to the top of the list for me, actually. Like after this finals and like his performance in this finals and all of this tournament, he's close to the top of the list. I think maybe we got a couple more years before we can solidify him. If he makes 4 finals in a row, I'm just gonna give it to him, you know, in my
Yeah,
head.
I mean
Yeah.
he's top 3. He's
Yeah.
definitely top 3.
Like he's so consistent, he's so good. And then yeah, I do think that his he does get kind of randomly caught out. Like I remember it was game 2, very very tense, right? It was like Gumayushi's literally hitting cross map arrows over and over again, and the game is super close in gold the entire time. T1 actually has Dragon Soul, they have Ocean Soul, but you can kind of see Beryl is just like getting caught and like flashing, right? Almost every fight to escape. But like I think what he brings was really just demonstrated by there was some comms that were kind of translated that were posted on Reddit, and it was kind of basically talking about how I think it was in game 2 where they weren't sure if they were going to end. I thought it was the point where they'd killed a bunch of T1, but still Keria and Owner were still alive, right? The Lux and the Graves. And I thought they were going to go for Baron, but Beryl apparently had said, go for the play and literally let's go end. And everybody on his team was saying, no, we shouldn't end. It's too risky. But Beryl said, no, we're ending. And they just ended. And they barreled it down. And they Camille ulted the Lux. They killed him. And they ended up finishing the Nexus in time. And eventually everybody on DRX was like, all right, sorry, let's trust Beryl, guys. Like, let's not doubt his calls. And you know what? I actually think that's what he brings to the table. He makes the right calls. He tells people what to do, and they get behind him. And we've known for a long time that that's like super valuable in super high pressure situations. And yeah, I bet you if Beryl doesn't have to make all those calls, his mechanics do sharpen up because it's hard to make those kind of calls and have really crisp mechanics at the same time. So, I mean, I'm just props to Beryl, right? To go for the end in game 2, that is such a huge momentum swift because if you lose on blue side, which we saw, right, with the Varus first pick, losing on blue
Yeah.
side is a big no-no, and they almost lost on blue side. That Beryl going for that end game call probably won them the series, like laying out, right? So, I don't know, really insane stuff from that guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, there was, I think, an unsung MVP. Actually, I don't know who the MVP was. If they
It was
named one.
Kingen. Yeah.
Okay, he's not unsung then. I was gonna say because going into this matchup, like he was kind of the one we were like, well, at least for me, that's where I put the edge to T1. I was like, Zeus is gonna dumpster Kingen. That's where the big advantage is gonna be. Maybe even everywhere else, but I was like, this is gonna be the advantage. And Kingen, oh my gosh, like surprised me and played the series of his life. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, you don't give him Aatrox like, those last 2 games or whatever. But honestly,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like, exactly. So talk a little bit about him. How surprised were you? Like, that was just insane. And I know he's taking it, he's taking the praise that he's getting very humbly. I think people are comparing him to the Shy or something like that. And like his not him per se, but his performance. And so he was just saying that he was humbled by that, the fact that, that's kind of the comparison he was getting. So what are your thoughts on him?
I think the most impressive thing about Kingen when I was watching was that there were so many positions where not only was he like doing well, is like his bot lane or somebody would just be down 50 CS, half of the CS is the enemy AD carry, down plates, 0-2, and then he just solo kills Zeus. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
You just did that. Or like they'll gank him and then he's just like, yeah, no, I'm turning this. There's so many times where his killer instinct, I don't think his micromanage like play was as good as like Peak Zeus or Peak 369's Aatrox. But his killer instinct and his willingness to go in when it was such a high pressure game was like so top class, right? That was the Shy like esque. When you saw him at the blue buff below Baron, where I was like, oh, this is a bad fight. And he just like flashes in and just gets a kill. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I actually think Zeka misplayed that by Azir ulting the wrong way and not getting more kills. But either way, I think he rescued this team. A lot of plays were just completely scuffed. Like a lot of early games were completely scuffed because T1 had better hands in terms of like raw mechanics, but they were giving lots of openings. Their drafts weren't good. And so yeah, they got Aatrox, but so did Zeus. He got Aatrox in one of the games, or he got a counter to Aatrox, and he also played Aatrox, right? Yeah. So I think Kingen offered a lot I think that he deserves the MVP. Like we were saying MVP Kingen by far, and if we had to say a second place is like Zeka, but like in terms of like what they did or Beryl, right? But it was not. It was a Kingen match, but he also looked a lot better because Zeus looked awful. So
Yeah.
I won't go too far into it because we're focused on Kingen. I think he deserves the MVP, but he peaked. He did the Chinese jungler, randomly gaps the enemy jungler in finals, but didn't do anything up till then special.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he was inting before this though, but he just played so much better. It was
Right.
actually crazy to see.
I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, I was definitely doubting him. I think we all were for the most part. And we talk about how DRX was the entire underdog. Talk about King, the double underdog.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying he's the weak link. And look at him now.
Yeah, I think Kingen played pretty well. I mean, I'm gonna definitely push back on the fact that he got Aatrox does matter a lot because that champ is super turbo broken. Uh, um, yeah, it helps a lot when you have a broken champion like that, and it also helps when
Play the
I don't
cards
know
you're
you.
given, man.
Yeah, but it's still strong. Like it still helps you a lot. I do think that's T1's kind of mistake is like they should have more heavily been worried about the Aatrox because they're focusing so much on the bot side, and it did feel like the bot side didn't have too much of an influence this series, and I felt like that sort of became obvious as the series went on that like Kingen and Pyosik and Zeka were more of a difference maker than what Deft and Beryl were literally doing. Like I get Beryl's shot calling is a big difference, but I think T1 made the mistake by not focusing on the top side matchup, not getting the Yone matchup earlier for the Aatrox or taking it themselves, or maybe they didn't have faith in Zeus to take the Aatrox early because he did have a really bad game 2 on it. They've struggled a lot this series to play well, and that also, contributes to how well Kingen plays is, if this superstar top laner you're playing against isn't playing too well, it does make things easier. I think, honestly, Zeus was just in bad positions so many times, and it's props to Kingen for following up on that. But I do wish Zeus played better. I mean, his Yone was so good game 1. I thought it
Yeah.
was gonna be like this Aatrox. You can't blind pick it anymore, right? You can't take it. But then I mean, DRX was always taking it in these spots where in game 5 they took it R3 and then they could ban the Yone.
Mhm.
But then game 4, like the Fiora pick, I mean, it's supposed to be good, but like he doesn't really do much. Like Zeus just, I don't know, he didn't do anything on the Fiora at all. And kind of that game 4 just in general was just a complete DRX stomp. Like Faker was 0-3-0 on Akali and Zeus was 1-2-1. Like it was just a complete annihilation by DRX. So yeah, I mean props to King and he played very well and he was doubted a lot. But yeah, I mean, good stuff. If you're gonna get Aatrox, you're gonna smurf on them, and he totally did.
Yeah.
Broken
Yeah.
champion.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dig into the games that, if there's anything specific you want to talk about. I will say most of these games were good ones. I mean, they were all above 30 minutes except for game 4, which was the quickest game in 28 minutes.
Just a super stomp.
Yeah, that's that
Yeah.
Fiora game you mentioned where,
Yeah.
Zeus wasn't doing much. I also want to nod that the Hecarim, that last game, that pick, I felt like that was a game changer. We hadn't seen Hecarim hardly at all, right? If any, right? And you had mentioned this a lot, Mitchell. I think it was you who kept saying, like, why don't we see Hecarim? You were like wondering,
Yeah.
like, why are we not seeing it? And honestly, when I saw it, I was like, ooh, this looks spicy. Like, I think this might be pretty good. And to me, it did seem like it was a pretty good pick into T1's comp. So
Yeah.
let's those are just some of the overall things, but let's start wherever I mean, if there's anything in the games you want to pick up, we don't have to go through every single game, but if there are details or specifics you want to
Yeah.
mention, let's
You just
do
talked
that.
about Hecarim, so I'll just talk that real quick while it's fresh.
Okay.
The Hecarim there is obviously great because Victor and Varus can't do anything
Yep.
against Hecarim.
Yeah.
That's just a super winning matchup for Hecarim in terms of just ganking, jumping on them, right? Easily burning flashes. I will say, personally, I really didn't like Pyosik's build. He's going the pre-rework Hecarim builds where you go tank and stuff, and I get like it's pro play, and I get the fact that like you don't really have time to like farm up and build up damage. But I do think he should have still built like Death Dance or maybe a Malvamortius because I think honestly Death Dance probably makes you tankier than like Dead Man's Plate, which is ridiculous, right? Because Death Dance gives you attack damage, but I think it was still better there. And I think that just new Hecarim has to build damage because it's just not the same as old Hecarim, right? His E burst is so much lower, and you do kind of need to like be in there and like constantly proccing damage. Because you saw there's that one time where Pyosik, they dive Faker on the bot side with Kingen, right? And he ulti like Victor gets E'd and ultied by Hecarim and takes like no damage at all. I was like, ooh, that's not how that's supposed to go. Like Hecarim should be one-shotting that guy almost. So I mean, there was a couple times where it was looking real sketch for DRX. The fact that Pyosik didn't have enough damage to kill some people because
Yeah.
he would be in there with Aatrox, and like you really need to get the Aatrox reset going. So that was some really close stuff. But the pick was still good. Build maybe not most ideal, but hey, it worked out for them. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Hecarim.
Nice.
For me, one thing that really stood out, this might be a little controversial. I think Deft was the better AD carry in this series. I think that Guma gapped on paper, like hard gap sometimes, like plus 40, 50 CS, like some Uzi level stuff, right? And that was probably in a lot of people's minds. But if you actually look toward mid game, like past 15, 20 minutes, almost every game this series, besides maybe game one, Deft was always in the better position, better output, better efficiency for the value he had, right? Like King got Aatrox, one part of why he was carrying so hard. He also got resources. Like he got a lot of priority. And Deft was just sitting there, like his Beryl would go off to Narnia, and then Deft was like, "All right, sure, I'm untiltable, I'm good." So like, I actually thought Guma, while he was flawless in laning, like right, I like totally saw the hype. I'm like, wow, this guy just like you can't breathe. But after like he was pretty okay, right? For the amount of resources given to you, he was not doing enough. And I mean, part of it is also probably because Keria didn't have his best series ever, but I don't think Keria played poorly. So I actually thought that some of it definitely has to be on Guma, where you have to be a all-time great AD carry, you need to lane well, right? That's what is the flashy part, but you also need to position well. And Deft played that
Oh, yeah.
flawlessly. I was so impressed. He got caught the least of pretty much any player in this series. And that's really hard against some of these comps. That's not a small task.
Yeah, I mean, especially for game 3, where like Deft actually just could not play the game. Like he was 50 CS at 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
Oh God.
something like that. Like
I
it was
I
bad.
remember
Like,
that. Yeah.
I
bad.
was watching this game. It's like, damn, this is just over.
Uh-huh.
And the game still went to 32 minutes. I feel like that game could have been over so much sooner if I think just Deft did a really good job of like staying in the game. The rotations to keep himself from getting absolutely blasted and frozen on were good. Like he really showed, like, even though he was getting beat, he was still actually maintaining. He still had a foot in the door. He wasn't worthless.
Yes.
And the other, I want to address the elephant in the room, the smites.
Oh.
Let's
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
take a second here to realize how much Varus WQ does and not flame Pyosik.
Yeah.
Which is another thing Riot needs to address. I don't know why spells or individual spells are allowed to do more damage than smite, but minor rant. It's not Pyosik's fault. Some of them, yes, fair enough. Some of them were bad. The 50-50s, I mean,
That's
it
a
is
call.
what it
That's
is.
like a team call, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like 50-50. It's called a 50-50 for a reason.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, most of them aren't actually 50-50s. Pyosik's not really playing champions that are great in a smite fight. And getting stolen by Varus WQ, it's doing like 1200 damage or something like that. Like that's not him. That's not on him.
Yeah, it's really not actually. Like especially game 5, the most like viewed one, the most contentious one, right? Like if you watch the Baron, it goes from like I think 1100 to 800 really quickly, and then it gets hit by Varus Q, and it's like technically yes, Pyosik could smite in time, but like, dude, it goes from in smite range, and then it gets hit by Varus Q immediately. Like that's like literally like the fraction of a fraction of a reaction time, and it is a blind Varus Q from Gumayushi. So it's not like he's planning it either. It's literally just blind
he
luck.
had blue trinket. He had blue trinket on it.
He had blue trinket, but I think someone went back and looked, and the blue trinket vision had died down, and then he had just thrown his Q. That's what I saw on Reddit.
I do want to say the biggest thing is, in my opinion, is not the smites. It's the fact that Varus is allowed to be in that position in the first place. That's the real crime.
Agreed.
Okay, I mean that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. So that is a team call. Like someone needs to be watching. Someone needs to be zoning the Varus.
Right.
So that's actually totally valid. Yeah, I can agree with that. And I do think though DRX. I mean, there were so many smite steals that got taken. So many
Yeah.
steals that got taken from DRX, and there were many times when Owner was able to get into the pit and steal it. Those ones are DRX's fault for sure.
Yes,
like you should not be
100%.
like you shouldn't
not,
be starting
not
Baron.
Pyosik individually.
Yeah. I mean, whoever's like
People are
making
putting the blame on
calls.
him. A lot of it's not his fault. Like, it's a 50-50. The situation shouldn't have arisen in the first place.
Yeah,
We
and
get it,
I,
Alistair. You like Pyosik.
No, I'm just saying how it is.
yeah, and
If anything, I
just,
should be the one hyping up the AD carry who's stealing it.
No.
Yeah. I think that it's just it just sucks, man. We're we got a lot of jungle players here,
It's
and
the armchair analysts, man.
it just feels bad, because it's like everybody's just pinging your smite, and you're just like, but guys, you didn't zone his ass, yeah. So whatever. It's fine, guys.
But see, most armchair analysts are coming from a solo queue like perspective, because that's
Most
what
armchair
is going to
analysts don't
happen.
understand the game.
Yeah, because if you're in solo queue and that happens, you're most definitely, people are question mark pinging that jungler, and it's like, dude, you've got to understand by now, like, that it is a lot harder than you think sometimes to get that smite perfect. And again, there are times when it's the jungler's fault, but in this scenario, like, it is pretty difficult. And this is, you can put some blame in that. Yeah, it's a team environment, so they should have been zoning. In solo queue, nobody's zoning nothing. It's like, we're flipping this thing. So,
or they're zoning way too much, and you leave the jungler by himself, and he fucking dies. I've had that happen too.
There were like some obvious examples too, where, like, for example, Aatrox on Kingen, they could have easily just walked over and zoned. There's no reason he should be DPSing. Or like the one where Zeka was playing Silas, and he ulted the Graves away, owner's Graves, right? He chained back toward Baron instead of chaining the Graves and just killing him or like stopping them. I was like, what is your 250 damage chain going to contribute to this? And so there was a lot of egregious examples. Obviously, yes. Were there some that he could have hit? Yeah, I mean, sure.
For sure.
But when you hit a smite as a jungler, the fact is no one cares, right? And when you miss it, everyone remembers. Like in the same game 5, he stole or at least won the contest on one of the very key dragons, third mountain, and he also got the Elder. So it's like in a contested state, and no one mentions that, right?
Yeah,
even though that won the game. If they don't get that Elder, there is a small chance that T1's backdoor could at least open the base, right, and not lose the game. And so I don't get it, right? I'm like, dude, he tried, and his team. Frankly, this is what I want to kind of move to a more macro talk of the series. Frankly, the series was one of the most entertaining and best storylines of all time. It was also a pretty low quality series at times. Honestly, I think the play, the fact that we had so many steal positions, like, shows that, like, DRX had a lot of great scrapping and a lot of great setups, but they had really bad, like, follow up for some of these. Like, they were not clean at all when they were around Baron Pit, and you could tell. And also the fact that T1 had to do all that just to, like,
stay
be
in
the series, right?
Yeah.
Also shows that, like, for some reason, despite all that, DRX was playing at a level way above T1. Like, DRX should probably 3-1 this series.
I hard agree. The fact that DRX was, like, honestly winning so many skirmishes, they were winning. Okay, they won everybody won their blue side games except obviously game 5, right? Where DRX is able to clutch it. And actually, you look at past some of the other games besides game 1, DRX is almost always in a winning position, and they make the mistakes to throw, actually.
Yeah.
And I really did feel like that's like a big. That shows a lot of how poorly I think T1 solo laners were playing. And that Faker and Zeus were just kind of not contributing a ton. I mean, honestly, Owner kind of had the series of his life. That guy was playing so well. Owner was really, really smurf. Like, we can talk about how it's not Pyosik's fault, but seriously, props on Owner for getting all those Baron steals and Dragon steals, right? Like, that is some clutch stuff for him, even when his teams are in such a weak position. So it's just an overall really crazy series. I think, like, one interesting thing that I want to talk about that I definitely want to send over to Alistair, because honestly, no one actually probably even remotely said on any analyst desk first pick Varus was going to define the entire series. It literally defined the entire day. First pick Varus, right? Every person who got first pick Varus won except game 5, and that was when you got the crazy ass curveball. They leave open Caitlyn and they ban Lux instead. And then freaking T1 loses their mind, completely pooping themselves, and they first pick Karma, and everyone's just like, everyone who's obsessed with draft at least is just like, I have no idea what's. These guys are like in like 12D chess right now. Like, these guys are actually so gigabrained that I don't even know what's going on. The first pick Karma blew my mind. I didn't know what was happening at all. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this Varus pick? Because I never really thought it was going to be that contentious.
Honestly, I don't know. Because like I said previously, like I don't actually think Varus is that good, and it's kind of hard to say because like it kind of feels like I don't know if every team won with it on blue side because they had Varus, or if it was something else. Because I want to say it's a coincidence. I don't think it's not actually just Varus. I think the best part about the Varus pick is the fact that he like has good laning and he's got decent setup, and he's pretty like he's not easy to punish. Right, I don't.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of what it was because we already said like bot lane wasn't a huge influence on this series for most of the time, especially
Yeah.
in the early game, which is when you would be abusing a Varus pick, which didn't really happen. So I
Right.
think it was just like we're gonna pick this because Caitlyn's always banned and
Lucian's always
Felios dropped
banned.
off the face of the
Lucian's
earth for
always
some
banned,
reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ash started to get banned every game too. Yeah, it was just such an interesting draft series where I totally agree. Bot lane was not that influential, but it was so heavily influential on the draft though. And it's like, it was just like I don't think we have enough information to like. We just need to actually be listening to what DRX and T1 coaches and players are saying because like that there is some level of like scrim and some level of just deeper knowledge that these guys had that man, it's just so hard to go. Like these guys are just so good. Like I was
Yeah.
like confused.
I mean, I'd like to know like an actual reason from the source on why Varus was such high priority. Because like I said, I actually don't think he's that good. I think it's just that he's hard to punish. He's not amazing in anything. He's kind of like budget Aphelios. He's got decent landing. He's got decent setup. His early game's all right. He scales decently. He doesn't have a massive drop off mid game. Like he's kind of jack of all trades in a way. And like
Yeah.
I think it's just like we're gonna blind pick AD because AD matchup doesn't really matter anyways, and we're gonna see what they pick, and we're just gonna counter their picks. I think that was I would guess that's it, but
I also
don't
think
know.
it's the flexibility because you did see that we saw a lot of on hit Varus, but we also saw lethality Varus. I think that flexibility also plays a big part into it too,
Exactly.
Yep.
which is interesting because that can really shape your draft, right? You literally can you can pivot from a DPS front to back comp into a poke comp just with off of one pick. So
That's true.
that's pretty interesting stuff. I just think it's just so cool. It's just so cool that we got this like high level stuff in the finals.
Yeah.
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 I mean, my read on it is like it's possibly also preference. Like, if you're telling me Varus is the fourth best ADC behind Caitlyn, Ashe, and Lucian for these guys in their mind, I
Yeah.
can believe it. In game 3 or 2, or game 2 that they won, Dev's Varus, the lethality Varus, was popping Faker's admittedly poorly bought crown, but crown like on cooldown, dude. I was like watching. I'm like, Faker, you know that you're just gonna that crown will never be like up, and if it's up, it's gonna break instantly. I don't really understand this, but anyways, I thought I was doing a lot, and I actually think that they won a game straight off the Varusal. The Varusal at Baron, where was it game 2 as well? It was game 2. They were really far
Yeah.
behind. They Varusalted Faker at Baron, and then they just
Mhm. I
reset on
remember,
his
yeah.
ass.
Yeah, and
Like,
he didn't
I
zone
think
use.
Varus
Yeah.
did so much work in this series. The ults were like
Yeah.
oftentimes one of their favorite kinds of ways to just non-committal engage, and it's strangely hard to dodge sometimes. In the mess of things, it's a very hard to see ult. It's also
Yeah,
very easy to miss because of how
I don't think
slow
it's
it
not that
is.
I think Varus is bad. I just don't think he's great.
I think
Yeah.
he's
I think-
worth being 4th, 5th pick.
I
mean,
mean,
80 carries in the game.
Yeah,
if
but I
can
feel like you
blind-
can make that. My thing is like I think you can make the argument about a lot of AD carries. Like there aren't really any that are super amazing. I
Yeah,
think there's just like it's
Yeah.
like Caitlyn Lux, Lucian Nami, and then it's like, okay, well, what's gonna fit your comp, right? Because you got like we're also forgetting Sivir, Misfortune, Aphelios, Varus. Like we have a lot of
Force,
champs you can pick here.
Yeah, but
Kaisa, of course.
they can engage, and Gumayushi and Deft were both engaging for their team and making big plays.
I agree.
And,
I'm just
and
saying
playing
that they're
super
not the
well.
only champs who
So,
can do that. I'm
think-
just saying
yeah.
like, it's a possibility.
We can move past this point now.
Yeah.
So I think it was
Yeah.
pretty good. I gotta say though, for Gumayushi's sake, we haven't said much about him. His Ashe in game 2, I was actually counting with my friends. He hit like 7 cross map Ashe arrows in
Mhm.
that one game, literally from the like entire screens away, like entire maps away, bot to top, mid to bot, everywhere, base to freaking jungle. Like it was just crazy. Like even though he lost, and even though maybe he didn't have as good of a series as he did against JDG, Gumayushi was still crazy good, guys. Like that was so insane to me. And then I thought there was one really funny time where Gumayushi is in bot lane and he hits an arrow in top side, and Silas had stolen it earlier. He also hits an arrow in top side while he's in a bot side jungle. So they're both smurfing these cross map arrows, man. And I was like, this is just high level play. This is just so insane. These guys' mechanics are amazing. And then you see DRX throw another bear, and I'm just like, they have monkey brains, man. They're actually monkeys. They're smurfing their minds off, and then they go make a stupid ass play. So it's just amazing to see. Like, just the level of play was so hype. Like, I'm not gonna say it was the best League of Legends ever, but it was the hypest League of Legends I've seen.
Well, I mean,
in
I
so
will
long.
say, like, I'm glad that, like, it's probably a good thing that there's a break between Worlds and then the next season of LCS, because there's going to be a lot of, you know, like the hype and the high level play that we just saw. Man, we're getting spoiled right now, because I feel like when it comes back to LCS, we're going to have to start seeing, you know, just not that, basically. But I do want to shout out one more time, because I've done this every level of playoffs, or every level of this Worlds tournament, is that the resolve on DRX is just so amazing. I mean, the fact, like, okay, so I've already said this plenty of times, but we all know the Deft not being able to kill the Nexus, right, with the inhibitor respawning, going to 5 games, and then having to go against Gen G, you know, going with all of that. And then here, even in these series, you talked about all the Baron steals, the Dragon steals. Like, who would be tilted by that? I know I was tilted for them. I'm just like, dude, my gosh. Right?
Like, game 5, I thought DRX had lost like 3 times, man.
Yeah,
I was like, it's over. It's over. They lost.
Everyone wants to talk about Deft mental, but how about Pyosik having everything stolen from him the entire goddamn series,
so
and then
mad,
you are
bro.
game 5 looking for an Elder Dragon. He didn't even want to do it. There were comms.
Like,
he didn't want to do it, and Beryl said, "You're gonna goddamn do it." And Pyosik won the smite fight. They won the goddamn game. You want to talk about Deft's mental? How about Pyosik?
Yeah, I would be
He's
scared
only
too,
a pro
though.
player to get his own kindred skin. Like,
Dude, this whole team's mental is the MVP of the whole tournament. Not even just the finals, but obviously the finals. Like, if there wasn't a bug in that GAM game in top esports, maybe they're playing a tiebreaker for second in the whole tournament.
Oh my god, that's so
like,
true.
Right? This is like literally, if I ever have
thank you, GAM
documentary or movie or whatever made of League of Legends, it has to be this tournament run. It has to be. This was everything was perfect. Everything lined up. You would literally have all these matches where it's like, this is unwinnable, right? They're down 0-2, whatever. Reverse sweep has only ever happened once in history, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? No, it is crazy. I think there's only been one bigger upset ever, and it was TPA versus CJ Entus. But it's still the first seed versus the first seed, and this is back before everyone was good, right? So honestly, this might still be the number 1, even with that in mind, because back then, I think the parity was closer.
Yeah,
it's just a beautiful
I mean,
time.
it's just manifest destiny is really what it is. It's just like they were destined to freaking win. If you don't believe in fate, maybe this will change your mind, because this was just so unbelievable. I mean, the fact that they barely qualified for play-ins, right? Because they had to make a playoff run, right, in LCK, and then to make it in play-ins, and then win play-ins, and then groups, and then quarterfinals, semis, like every step of the way, they just weren't supposed to win, and they come out on top. And so I'm really happy for them. Is there any last things you want to say to, you know, about our world champs in this series in general before we move on to LCS news?
DRX Caitlyn, let's go!
DRX Caitlyn, that's gonna be sick.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I just want to say the Renata, that shit is not balanced, man. That champ is so broken, dude.
I've been
Renata
saying this since launch, man. It's
so broken. Like, it's been
but
clear
I think
she's
she's
broken all
acceptably
series.
broken.
It's maybe, I don't know. She's like real, like in these. I guess it's just taking so long because we haven't seen it being played at this high of a level. Like, players have finally gotten super good at her. Both Keria and Beryl are so insane at this champion. It's crazy how good this champion can be. I also think, just like in general, I really hated the Victor pick. I just don't think it's strong enough. Honestly, if he wants to play a mage in mid lane and he wants to play something that can take crown, right? Like, because you're afraid of getting hit too. It's like Victor just doesn't seem it. I was like, I don't know. He wants to play control mage. He can't play Azir, right? I do think there are some games where he should have played Ryze, even though it didn't look great. There are other times Ryze was banned and he had to pick Victor. But like I was thinking like Rai should have been higher prio for T1 maybe, and maybe Oriana instead of Victor, because it doesn't seem like he was getting much done. It did seem like he was worried about dying too, which is why he was taking the crown. I think maybe you just take Oriana so you have CC to help out your team so you can get something off before you die. And so you can shield and speed up your teammates, because Owner was smurfing and playing really, really well. And maybe you just pick an Oriana just to support him. So those are just some thoughts I had just about the draft in general for T1, because I like, when you're at a game 5 like this, right? And it's like DRX is winning a lot of these fights but losing a lot of these macro calls, and T1 is like clutching a lot of these interesting scenarios. It's like the series is so close that just these little tiny things could change the outcome dramatically. And I mean, T1's going to be kicking themselves, right? They had so many opportunities to win the series. DRX is probably kicking themselves even though they won, because they had so many opportunities to just 3-1 this series as well. So just seriously a game of inches. Like, regardless of who fell and who won, both teams are really, really freaking good. Like, so insanely good. Like, even though we're kind of clowning on Zeus and Faker, they still played pretty damn well. Just not as well as they did against JDG, but still really, really well. So, yeah, just props, just top level League of Legends, really good stuff.
And that's why it was so hyped, because it was such a good just battle between both teams. Like, I mean, literally every game, besides game 4, I was like on the edge of my seat. And so it was like, for all of those reasons, with the storylines and the narratives of both sides, like coming into this, oh my gosh. Like, I mean, I even thought, we won't get into this too much, but I even thought like the opening ceremony seemed pretty cool. Like, I thought just everything about the weekend or the finals day was just really awesome. But yeah, like let's talk a little bit just briefly about the world skin. So it's Aatrox, Kindred, Akali, Caitlyn, and Ashe. I know I'm gonna pick Ashe and play support for Alistair. I know I'm gonna.
You guys already know what I'm picking.
Oh yeah, Akali, right?
Yeah, Alistair's
Aatrox
champion.
jungle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
Ooh.
Akali, baby.
Akali support?
Akali.
I'm disappointed it's not Silas, but I'm also not surprised it's not Silas.
Yeah.
Just because Riot probably vetoed it, saying, "Hey, we already have 2 blue Silas skins.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah,
don't want to
true.
make a third."
Yeah.
True.
Fair. That's actually super fair. I didn't think of that. But yeah, Akali's gonna be dope. I don't know if I'm gonna buy it because I don't have a job yet. But when I do get a job, I might be buying that.
I mean, Akali has a
I'm happy
billion
that Kindred's
skins.
finally gonna get a good skin.
Oh, true.
I think Super Galaxy's her best, and it's all right. And then mentioning the Honkai or Genshin Impact thing, the Ashe pick is literally because he likes a ranger character in
Oh, that's
not
right.
Genshin, but one of their games called Honkai. Literally, there's a character with a bow, and she's like, "I just want this to be my representation." And then apparently the skin team laughed at him when he sent the reference pick. And they're like,
Oh my God.
yeah, we can do it. But they clowned on him for choosing his waifu as like his skin choice. And
I
was like,
wanted
because I thought it was
Heimerdinger.
Heimer.
I
was like,
wanted
dude, Heimer was so
Heimerdinger.
influential, right?
I know.
Man.
And
I
he's
wanted
like,
Renata.
Nah, bro. I
Yeah,
have one
Renata would've
goal
been
in
cool
this
too.
tournament, and it was to get my waifu an internal skin. Last year it was Yumi and Mako's cat. This year it was his waifu. It's like,
Oh my God.
what's most important to you?
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, there you have it. DRX are champs against all odds. Congratulations to them. I am a little sad for my boy Faker, but I have no doubt that the man will be back, and I have no doubt for the rest of those young guys getting back here. Let's move to some LCS rumors, because I know LEC's taken off with all the roster moves, but right now we just have rumors pretty much in the LCS, but pretty spicy. I think the biggest one right off the press right now is the possibility of 100 Thieves getting Doublelift, Bjergsen, and Spica. We'd had heard rumblings of Doublelift possibly coming back. It sounds like this is from Travis saying that it seems like the leading team to get him is Doublelift, but that would be along with Bjergsen and Spica. We know that they've played together before. It seemed like they always got along. I mean, I didn't know how Bjerg and Doublelift got along, but it seems like they're if they had differences, they're willing to put it aside to make another run. I think there's mixed reactions to this, because if it is true, then this kind of goes against the philosophy of burn it all down. Like, let's get new talent, stop getting old names. But at the same time, I know there are a lot of people who are like, well, this is good for viewership. This is good for 100 Thieves. Like, they're going to get instant viewership. Think of the merch. Like, think of all the things that they're, going to get. And honestly, it is 2 old guys, Bjerg and Doublelift, but Spica's still young. if the rumors are true with Buzio being in support, that's new. And we don't know who the top laner is. Could be someday. And who's not a bad pick. He had a really great season. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that rumor in general?
My thoughts are it's probably somewhat reliable, at least because it's Travis talking about Doublelift, and he's always never wrong about, at least about Doublelift. He's usually right about other offseason. I don't think. All right, we played through the Bjergsen experiment on Liquid. I think he still played top 3 mids, but that's not a high bar to clear. I don't know if they're that expensive. I think everyone's price got cut by a lot just because of the budget cuts, but they're still probably relatively speaking some of the most expensive buys, especially how worth it Doublelift's value is. Will he play well? Dude, he's taken
2 years break.
2 year break. Right? Oh, it's been 2. Yep. Oh, wow. Yeah, because he went with Bjerg. Yeah, I think he's not going to be like top 3 or top 2. He might be 3rd, depending on who's in the league next year. But it's going to take a while to ramp up. I do have a little bit more faith that AD carry can stay relevant, in different metas with breaks, because I think AD carry changes the least in Modern League. But even so, I don't know. The only thing that gives me a little hope is Double still does play Champs Q, does do that, all that content, plays a lot of League, and it looks good, right? So like that's at least, he won't be bad on that end. I don't like it though. I don't like them building a team again that, like, guys, when NA was still competing and like getting like 3-3 results in groups, this core was the 0-6 TSM.
Yeah.
What in God's name incentivized you to combine these 3 people in particular together? Yeah, they made a legendary run to get that finals win that year with TSM, but like anyone who actually watched that season, like that was not a good look for anyone involved there. Every team, including TSM, in the top 4 there were all looking like the worst they've ever looked. TSM looking the best of them. So I don't like it. It's good for them in the short term, but like, what's the value of a Bjergsen or Doublelift jersey if it's only going to be there for a year?
I'm not a fan. I would prefer Doublelift just stay retired. I am a Doublelift fan for sure. I have been for a long time. I would rather he just stayed retired, stuck with the co-stream, and even if he did come back, I don't want to see him on a team with Bjergsen. I don't. We've seen this happen and flop way too many times. The only time it worked really well was in 2016, and they went 3-3 in groups. They could have made it out, but Lucian, Victor, Keck, W. I don't see the point. I think it's throwing money in the trash. If you're going to get Doublelift out of retirement, you put him on a team. You go Doublelift, someday Spica, Buzio, Palafox. That's the best roster you can get, I think. Because you're going to get Buzio and Palafox, who are still new. Buzio is 100 Thieves Next or 100 Thieves Academy. He's good. Doublelift can help get him to be really good. Palafox has been growing exponentially every year. Doublelift already thinks highly of him. Build him up again, especially with a semi-veteran jungle in Spica. That could work really well. And then you have Someday, who's fairly consistent. That's a good roster. Putting Bjergsen in there is foolish and idiotic, in my opinion.
I think I'm gonna try and give the positive take here, because we all give the negative take. Is that honestly, yeah, internationally, right? We're not gonna see probably too much if this team does represent us, because we've seen Doublelift and Bjergsen represent us time and time again, and nothing really happens. But 100 Thieves might just be okay with winning titles in NA, and from that perspective, it's probably a pretty good go. Doublelift actually said recently on stream that he does not care about the pay. He's just trying to win stuff. And so who knows what the contracts are and the prices of everything are, right? Bjergsen is probably expensive because it's a buyout from TL, but Doublelift can be any price, and same with Spica can be any price because he's a free agent. So maybe 100 Thieves is not actually spending a ton of money for these boomers. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'll say that it's pretty hype for viewership, and that if there was a guy to come back after a 2-year retirement and start winning again, it's only Doublelift, right? It's just that guy. And yeah, it's pretty disappointing. I mean, it's like underwhelming after we just saw Bjergsen do it and be super lackluster. So there's not a lot of high hopes for people who've been retired a long time and come back to NA, right? I also just checked Doublelift's Champs Queue. He's got a 39% win rate in Champs Queue right now, which is not the greatest or highest. And he only actually played 23 games, which is not a lot either. And that's just this split though, right? So that's not taking into account the whole year. But in the most recent split where Worlds was taking place, he only played 23 games. So we'll see. Like, I better be seeing Doublelift. Like, I don't know, maybe if like go boot camp in Korea and spam the crap out of Korean solo queue and get like challenger there. Because otherwise, I'm not going to be convinced his mechanics are going to be there. Because yeah, 80 carry doesn't change much, right? Throughout the years, the champions they just kind of are in like there's like 10 champions that rotate throughout the years, right? And it's just the clutchness, right? That's what Bjergsen was lacking. He could play the lane well. He could play his champions okay. It's just that when they left retirement and they came back, he didn't have the clutch factor. He didn't have that thing where everything goes wrong, your team's falling apart, and it's that champion mentality that brings you back from the depths of winning. Like that's what we were seeing at Worlds, right? That's what we were seeing made the difference in the World Championships, in finals, is the super clutch factor when everything is shit. And if Doublelift still keeps that, right, and his mechanics are maybe a little bit lower, but he's making clutch calls and he's making like clutch plays to bring his team back in, then yeah, I'll say maybe this is his time to really return. I mean, I'm still excited. Like, I'm still like pretty freaking hyped, guys. Like, this is Doublelift. Like, this is not Bjergsen. Bjergsen, when he didn't have Doublelift, didn't win jack shit. This is Doublelift that wins everything, no matter what team he's on. So if he keeps doing it and keeps winning, he is the GOAT. He is the NA LCS GOAT if he wins another split. He already is, but I mean, Bjergsen was put first by the community, by the pros and community. Bjergsen is considered the #1 player at LCS by the pros and by the analysts and by the casters, right? But if Doublelift does it this year, he's just undisputed the GOAT. I don't care that Bjergsen's there.
He's doing it on a team with Bjergsen. What if Bjergsen plays better?
Well, okay. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah,
that's why I'm annoyed, right? I want them to play at the same time, just not together.
Yeah, so it's gonna be hard to tell. Yeah. No, yeah.
We saw them play against each other and Doublelift beat him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We saw them play together and then they win, right? So it is the Doublelift factor. I'm still gonna say if Doublelift comes back out of retirement and starts smurfing on people, even if Bjergsen does play better, I'm gonna be like, yo, this guy just doesn't lose it, right? Like Bjergsen lost it for a year. Doublelift just comes back, instantly starts smurfing. I'm down for it. I do worry though. All right, so there's the other side where I'm just like, yeah, it's a bunch of boomers, a bunch of oldies.
that's the thing, because that's what gets us every time. I'm always like, and then, you know, it's always the names create the hype, like it does right now. Because I'm with you, I'm hype, but it's the same old song and dance. I'm hyped because it's like, you know, the nostalgia. Like honestly, it's like, you know, I want to see Doublelift play again because I miss having him in the LCS. Like, honestly, like I still kind of want Bjergsen to play, right? I don't actually think they're going to win. Like, I actually don't think Doublelift, you know, you said a lot of great things if he does this, if he does that, but I've mentioned this before, but I don't think he has that grind mentality or, you know, you talk about boot camp in Korea. I don't think he's going to do that. Like, I just don't, I don't think he's going to do that. And I'm wondering if, like, that's just kind of the expectation. Like it's more for like, okay, maybe we can be competitive, even if they're like a 4th, 5th place team. Like it's still gonna make money for the team. And honestly, like I don't know all the rumors, right? But Papa Smithy is no longer in 100 Thieves, and I know he was trying to be in control as far as roster moves, as far as building a team, and maybe this was a direction that was pictured for him. And he didn't agree with it, you know. Maybe they had plans of this already, and they were saying, "Hey, Papa Smithy, this is kind of what we're looking at." And he was probably like, "I don't like that direction." Maybe he is, you know, wanting to build a team. And kind of going alongside that is we just saw that he signed to FlyQuest as Chief Gaming Officer and President. So it's like that gives him control, right? And so it looks like he's got what he's asked for, where he wants to be an integral part about building something. And when I hear building something, I think that technically means, you know, finding new, fresh talent and not kind of going with these old guard type of deals. But all of that to say is I am also hyped. I'm going to temper my expectations. I think it's nice to have at least one team that's kind of got some names on it just for viewership, because even if they play a team that's like lower ranked, I might watch it just because Doublelift and Bjergsen are playing, it's fine, right? And so that helps a little bit. Like, I don't count on them. I'm not expecting them, like in the years past, that this team with Doublelift and Bjergsen is going to go into international tournaments and start wrecking shit. I don't even have that expectation at all.
No,
and I'm
I
okay
don't.
with that.
Yeah.
Like, I actually want to see our younger, talented, fresh, talented teams make a run and them start to do the, because it is their time, right? It's their time to make a splash in international tournaments. So I'm okay with that. But I also am okay with these boomer teams kind of being in the middle of the pack and providing entertainment.
I've seen this with other sports and esports, like one StarCraft where there was a lot of stars in the first wave, right? These oldies that were there from the beginning that everyone likes. One thing I'm worried about for NALCS is like we need another round of stars though. Like I'm really happy that Double and Bjerg are still playing. We still have Jensen and whatever. Actually, he might not have a team, but we have like all these old stars, right? But where's the second wave of people that we're excited about? Like Jojo Pyon's the one, right? And that's about it. Danny's like might not be
Gone.
playing pro anymore, right? Like
Yeah.
it's he's at least not on a team starting, and there's no talk about him on a new roster, right? So I'm happy that they're here, but they need to build. We need other stars. We can't just have JoJo. Well, we could, but we shouldn't just have JoJo as the only young player that everyone's super excited about and is marketable, right? Because it doesn't even matter if they're like the best hands. Like Palfox might be the second best or best mid laner of NA talent, right? But if no one cares, then it won't go that far unless they do something like undeniable at Worlds, right?
Yeah.
It's a mix of like personality and skill, right? Because we could
Mhm.
have skilled players, but if they don't have the personality, it's kind of tough. And I would venture to say that Bjergsen doesn't have that much of a personality. I think he's just been so consistently good.
For a long
It's just
time,
and he's not toxic, right? I think kind of the same thing can be said about Faker. Faker doesn't necessarily have a bubbly personality, but he's been good for so long and he's not toxic. He seems to be a great teammate, all of this stuff, right? So, but with Doublelift, he's got the personality. Same thing with JoJo. JoJo has that combination of skill and kind of this attitude. And I would go as far as to say even Fudge. Like, yeah, he might not be the best, but he can be good at times. And we've seen during his casting that he has an enormous amount of game knowledge. And so there is personality there, whether you like him or hate him. And I think that's what we need more of. And so I agree with you saying that, we need the second round. Maybe there's a couple here and there, but we need more, and we need it to be a staple in the next few years.
Yeah. I just want to say though that like we are entering a pretty dangerous timeline. So I'll lay it
Mhm.
out is like Doublelift and Bjergsen, 100 Thieves and stuff, they win everything. They win spring and they win summer and they become the entire highlights of the year. And then we go to MSI, we don't make it out of groups, and then we go to Worlds and we go 3-15 again. That's like the worst timeline ever because then it's literally a wasted year. It's a timeline where our rookies didn't get a chance to grow because they were stifled by
Mhm.
these players that were so overbearing in terms of popularity, in terms of content, in terms of personality. Like we kind of need this year of low to build up to the things that Kevin is saying is our next wave of stars. If we're always in this point where we have these big stars overshadowing potential new stars, we never get actually the new stars, right? Jojo and Danny were kind of an anomaly because they were able to win in a world with Bjergsen and Hansama and Blippo and all this crap, right? So I hope that I think this is the best timeline for North America is that Bjergsen and Doublelift, they come back and they put up a really good fight and they are popular. But some rookie, some guy we barely know,
Yeah.
maybe teams up with JoJo and they beat them handily and solidly. And then they go to an international. And yeah, maybe we go 3-15 again, but we get these really new guys who are 18 years old who have a lot to grow, some experience. Because I think that JoJo's going to come back and he's going to take a complete dumpster on Bjergsen again because he went to Worlds and he'd grown so much and he was playing so well on EG. And I hope that that's the timeline we get, and I think that's what's
Mhm.
going to be the best for North America. I love Doublelift, I love Bjergsen, and yeah, there's a part of me that wants to see them succeed. I don't have faith in them to do it internationally,
Yeah.
and that's what we're aiming for. That's what we want, right, for our region. So we gotta hope that FlyQuest or EG or some other team out there, Yeon from Team Liquid, they overcome these big superstars, and that Doublelift and Bjergsen are just stepping stones for the next great North American
And
stars.
to be honest, like I don't think they're from my perspective, I don't think they're gonna win or go to Worlds. Like I don't
Yeah.
think they are, and that's fine. That's okay with me. That's what I'm saying. Like I think that the reason why I'm a little okay with this is because they're there, but I don't think they're actually like gonna be good enough to make it, you know, to that level.
I don't think the roster makes it to Worlds. I think
Yeah,
I think
that's
the roster's
exactly
done by the end of spring.
We'll
right.
see. We'll see what the other
I
rosters
could be
look like.
wrong. Yeah, I could be
If
wrong.
all
but
the other rosters look like shit, and
Yeah.
like all of our freaking amateur and players can just choke under the pressure against playing, because we've heard for years and years and years. Remember Cody's son? This guy was an absolute smurf.
Yeah.
He goes up to Doublelift, he gets just first blooded and shit on in lane over and over again, right? Like that's what I'm afraid of. Is like we just get stifled, right? And
Yeah.
they do need to, and then we need our amateur and our young players to overcome this like pressure,
True.
this overbearing narrative and personality that Doublelift and Bjergsen bring. But it's not exactly a welcoming environment.
True.
I mean, we'll be fine, Mitchell. Team Liquid's got a full Korean-speaking roster, as the rumor. So
That's
Oh,
what I
wow.
hear too.
TSM players have never had a great record against Koreans. The rumor is that Impact might be coming back to Liquid. I'm very
Mhm.
happy about that. And they're keeping Core JJ, which is
Yep.
the bigger rumor, right? That's
Yep.
the more solidified, or it's still a rumor. Keeping Core JJ was the move I wanted. We've been talking about
same.
this. If it's between Bjerg and Core, keep Core, and they did.
It doesn't
Or-
surprise me at all.
Doesn't
There's
surprise
no,
me. He
There's
should be the
no
franchise
way.
player.
There's no way you ditch Core JJ for Bjergsen.
Yeah.
I mean,
T-Bell's done some sus stuff, so we'll see. But yeah.
Also,
There's no.
we'll see.
There's just no argument.
Also, to add fire fuel to that rumor is that Reaper is also free, and so he
Yeah.
also could speak Korean.
Oh,
so
he
that
left
could
100
be-
Thieves as well. Yeah.
Yep. So
no,
he
they
could
let
be a
him go,
possible
I
coach.
think. Or I think they let him go.
He is
but
not
either
on
way,
100
he's not on
Thieves.
it.
Yeah,
Either
we don't
way-
know who is who, but yeah.
Either
he's not
way,
on
I
there.
mean,
That's-
if you're
that's a
looking all
crazy thing.
Korean-speaking team, you know, he could be a good coach for that. I don't know.
I'm not
Jan,
down
the
for
w-
Reaper.
Jan, the one you
saying.
mentioned, is a 20-year-old North American player. He does speak Korean, apparently.
Mhm.
But yeah, they could have some Korean Americans and then Korean imports. And this could be a disgusting roster and not that expensive.
Damn,
Hmm.
dude, that's crazy. And then we still have C9 lurking around, right? We don't know what C9's doing at all.
Yeah, that's a great
We just
question.
know that for sure they're keeping Berserker and probably
They
keeping
better.
Blabber, right? Like we
Yeah.
don't know, but
Hmm.
like Fudge, probably, maybe, I don't know. Jensen, I don't know. Sven,
Jensen's
actually-
a free agent. Jensen
Jensen's a
tweeted,
free agent?
yeah, Jensen tweeted that he, you know, he's like, for all inquiries, like, please, you know, he's looking for a team. So that's already, you know, I just saw it on Twitter. So I think that's the case. And also Travis did like this kind of his predictions. So they're not you know, they're not confirmed, but you know, when he makes predictions, so there's usually some weight to it. And he believes that C9 will keep Fudge, Blabber, and Berserker
Okay.
around that core. And that seems about right.
I would be very surprised if they got rid of Fudge.
yeah,
Okay.
He's
I
the
just
most
hope
marketable
that,
part of that team.
yeah, I hard agree. I just hope the C9 doesn't fill it with a bunch of imports or a bunch of like veteran players. Like
Right.
we really do need just a ton of a huge influx of just new players. We just need a ton of new names, like a ton of very unheard of or barely heard of academy players or just completely unheard of names. Like I'm even down for like imports from Korea and China that are actually just no names too. I'm down for that
Right,
as well.
yeah.
Like we actually just need new young blood to overcome and overtake all of these like ancient people. Like because even though Impact and Someday and Closer and all of these household Core JJ even, right? Like I only want them there to train up some new players and then I
Right.
want them gone. I don't think they have a place anymore in the future of LCS, and that because they go to international year after year, and I'm tired of saying that they hold their own. If we want to win worlds, we need to beat them and overcome them and outplay them completely. So
Especially, I think the biggest or the person who's most guilty of this is Stixay. They bring him onto teams and he's willing to like train up these new guys, but then he gets interviewed and he says, "Oh yeah, we're all just a bunch of friends." Then what's the point of you being there? I'll be honest.
yeah,
Like I like Stixay. He was really good. He hasn't been for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's over, homie. I'm sorry.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's over for Stixay as well. I mean, if you want to be a coach, stay as a coach, please.
Be a positional coach if you want, but like you're not making it onto a top tier team. You're not gonna win a split again. You're not going to international again.
They were
Different for
close
someone.
this year, weren't they?
They were close. They were one game
Yeah.
away from beating EG, right? Or
Yeah.
or TL. It was TL or EG. One of
TL,
those.
I believe, actually.
I think it was
but either
TL.
way.
Yeah. They were one game away from beating them. who was then one game. Remember, there was like one game away
there
from
was a
just being
chain
there
of one
'cause-
games. That's the whole
yeah.
bracket. Dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will say because we had the bunch of no names like Kaido and Shenny or whatever all come over. I want rookies that not even are like amazing on the world level immediately. I just want them to be raised in the right environment to grow. Like the
Yeah.
first time in a while where I thought someone rookie was like growing at a really high rate. Well, Tactical is the first, I guess, but the second time would be JoJo, right? Where you're like, you noticeably saw this man learn League of Legends as he was
Yeah.
playing. Like you
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
Nivea as like, oh, okay, and like you saw like he had the right system behind him to grow. When you saw like Kaido and Shenny, they weren't even terrible on paper. You knew they weren't growing week over week. They just did the same shit. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, what the fuck?
Well, TSM was burning down too, so
I want the
Yeah.
top. Yeah, exactly. I don't blame them. I blame the rosters, right? Like they
Right.
lost their
Yeah.
coaches, they lost Part, they lost everyone. But I'm saying like it can't just be new players. It needs to be new players in the right environment. So
Yep.
hopefully FlyQuest will be one of them. I expect them to. And then EG already proved they could do it, although they dropped Peter Dunn. We'll see, right? I want the top rosters. Like Liquid's got Eon, right? He's going to probably be decent, right? He's with Core. He's going to get some growth. And we only need one of those guys to hit out of every 3 or 4, and we will have the next generation, right? We're already doing
There's a
better than
reason
before,
there's a
where
new
we have one
generation
rookie.
every year in Asia.
Yeah,
It's true.
exactly.
Very
This is
true. Yep.
Although DRX proved that veteranship helps because holy moly, all those rookies in the finals, they rookied. Okay,
They
They
did,
definitely
yeah.
rookied.
That's true.
They're like 1.5 year rookies, but they're mostly rookies, right? They're not
Yeah.
officially rookies.
Like
but-
But still, but even
Gubayushi,
if you look at SKT, like sure, yeah, I know it's SKT, Herder, Faker, right? But like at the same time, there's 4 really young players,
yeah. Yep.
right? Like you could put Doublelift, who's pretty much the NA version of Faker, with 4 new guys, or maybe Spica.
Yep.
There's a good roster. Now you're training up your next guys. Maybe you get a franchise player.
Yep,
One of them doesn't
that's,
work.
That's why you don't get
Put him
Bjergsen.
down.
That's
to the
why
academy.
I
exactly.
hope this is just
That's
a
why I
rumor.
hate the Bjergsen part. I'm
Yeah,
more
we're
okay
all on
with
the same
Doublelift.
page. We don't
We're
have
all-
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We're on the
do
same
think
page.
with
Sorry,
with
tangents.
with I
That's
do
fine.
think with Doublelift though, there's a part of him he's not down to teach new people. Sometimes
No,
it feels like
I don't
he
think so.
doesn't seem like he's the teaching guy, right? He probably could have gone into coaching if he wanted to. He's just not an amicable person. He's gonna tell you your shit like from the get go. like
Dude,
so
he broke Ole back when Ole was like a rookie / second year player, right?
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
I mean, I don't know.
so Doublelift with a bunch of rookies, as beautiful as that sounds, man, he just doesn't. I wish he had the personality with it, man, because that would be great if our NA
See-
goat, was like that.
all they need to do is film it so that we'll have entertainment when he's trying to coach them. He's like, you know what?
Bruce,
You're
what the-
your ass. You just bleep
See,
everything like
even,
it.
even if it's not just Doublelift being the only veteran, even if there's just 2 rookies, it's 2 more than we usually get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm down with that. Yeah, I mean, I'm just down with more rookies in general, and I think that 100 Thieves, they're going for the big plays this year, right? They're saying everybody is scaling down, and we're just gonna scale up in response. And I kind of hate that because it's like you're not playing for your league, you're playing for yourself and like taking advantage of the situation, which I guess is great for yourself, right? And I could understand doing that if you're in Korea or China, if you have the chance to win worlds. But it's like back to that whole thing of like 2 hobos fighting each other. And then the 100 Thieves as a hobo, they got like a knife, I'm just like, whatever, man. Like I don't care. Like so I'm kind of disappointed in 100 Thieves in that, like, if they go this route, like, they're literally just taking advantage of the situation where everybody else is scaling down.
Yeah, I think
So-
we all kind of have beat that horse till it's dead.
I just think
we
if you're
we
buying
are
into
not
laner
on
and
the.
It's Bjergsen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Sky
think
Palafox, man.
I know. I think we get it. I think we've made the point
Yeah.
home, but
Doublelift bad, Bjergsen bad. All right, sorry.
not
we'll give
even
Doublelift a
like
chance.
yeah, I say
Yeah,
yeah. But here's the thing though is that and we won't talk about it this time, but I know that they did tweet out the North American Challenger League or whatever it's called, Challenger.
back, boys.
Yeah,
Salt League.
so we've got they're making it looks like they're making some changes as far as like how the academy and amateur circuit will work. We'll talk about that. I think the best time to do that is when they announce the LCS format changes when they
Yes.
do. And so that'll be a good time to talk about all of that stuff. But we've got plenty of other episodes that we need to talk about in the future because we got preseason stuff coming up. But is there any final thoughts that you guys wanted to add just as far as like as we wrap up this quote unquote final episode of this season? before heading into like the preseason stage?
Yeah, one last thing. I just saw a post on the Travis post about rumors. Someone said the FTX has just filed for bankruptcy or something. So I'm like, oh, is TSM really, really, really in trouble now? To the bigger topic of sponsors are gonna be dropping. We're gonna have less sponsor money, so it's gonna suck right now. But I think things will get better as a result. Things are gonna be more healthy and sustainable. We're not gonna go down the path of stupidly high numbers until esports becomes really marketable, right? And it is actually worth the contracts that you see in like major sports.
Yeah, quickly, I also just read a thing from Travis. Apparently CLG is not staying together and they're mostly
Yeah.
blowing up. Yeah.
Saw
So
that
that's a
too.
big bummer because that is a bunch of North American players. That is honestly a bunch of really young players mixed with, some small amount of veteranship from contracts in Dokla. But like that's unfortunate, I think, if that does come about, because
There's
that was a
hope for
bunch of
100
really
Thieves
green.
Palafox.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
And
So
also from
I-
Travis, apparently FlyQuest might not be together either. So
Yeah.
like,
Well, Jose Dioda's already gone.
yeah,
they have a
Jose
new
Dioda's already
CGO,
gone.
right? And
Yeah.
so Papa
Yeah.
probably wants to build a new team. There's going to be rookies, hopefully.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
where's Jose going again? I can't remember.
LEC, I believe.
Yeah, he's going to EU, I think.
Wow.
I don't remember exactly where, but yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. LEC is just a complete dumpster fire. We're not even going
Yeah,
to get
it
into it this
is.
episode, guys.
Heck
It
no.
is bad out there. Woo!
It is crazy. Yeah, but I mean that's the thing. And then you think about if these 100 Thief rumors are true, then that means FBI, who he,
Where are they going?
where are they going? Closer, where are they going?
Closer is probably a massive pick for some
Yeah.
teams, right? Because like that's definitely a guy that I want to see stick around
Yeah.
and like play around some rookies. Because I don't know if he's gonna have it forever, right? Maybe he goes away in a couple years, but for now, Closer is definitely a guy that I'm okay with having around some promising talent, and I would love to see him play still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I do want to throw out one more name. That he's
Alistair.
been signed to an academy team.
I thought you were
Not-
the name.
not yet. Throw it.
Not yet.
But I believe he recently got signed to an academy team. But within the next couple of years, should look for Shiden. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Shit,
Guys, jungler. He's cracked. He held like rank 1, 2, 3, and 10 at one point.
wow.
Dang.
The guy, like,
Oh, I've
he's
seen
really
this guy.
good.
I've heard
Yeah.
of this guy. Yeah.
He's really good.
Newsflash, it's me.
Yeah, he doesn't play Yumi, bro.
Calm
Oh,
down.
dang
Sit down and play your Yumi, buddy.
Dang it. Yumi Jungle, you ain't seen it? Come on.
Hey, it's
Alright, let's go.
okay. Did you guys hear like the how to get rank 1 when the season starts? You play Yumi jungle, you smite your junglers camps, they AFK, and then you finish the game the quickest, and you're one of the highest ranks at the very beginning of the season because the
my
game ended
God.
so fast.
Oh wow, I like it. Okay.
So you could be rank 1 maybe.
Well, you heard it here first, y'all. All in podcast, giving great advice. Okay, well, that's gonna wrap it up for us. It's been a fun year just talking about all the games. We've still got episodes coming to get ready for the next season, but it does feel like a closure of one mark just because Worlds is done. And so it's been an exciting time. I just am so happy that we got to be a part of all of this historical run at Worlds and just to be able to cover it and be there as fans. But once again, I want to thank my awesome co-hosts, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair, for always sharing their wise insights. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.